Hello, hello, hello. Yes, sir. I'm back at it. It's been a while. I just not been having a good run of it, but yeah, yeah. I wanted to I wanted to talk about the riots that were happening in the UK late last year, and I'll get to the point of why I'm going through this at the end. But it's an eye opener, and I'll be reading through these notes and it's gonna be in detail. So I'm sorry for the time it's gonna take. Um, I'm sorry for how rigid it might sound. Maybe you would want more flair into it. But I did try compiling all the notes I could on the matter so that I gave you accurate information that was better than what you got by popular social media platforms. But let's get into it. The riots against Muslims in the UK in late July and early August 2024 were a wave of far right violence fueled by misinformation, anti immigrant sentiment, and Islamophobia, with deep rooted socio political causes. I will give a breakdown of the key factors. First, on key factors of the breakdown would be the immediate trigger, misinformation after the Southport stabbing. So on July 29, 2024, three girls were killed in a knife attack at a children's event in Southport. The suspect, Axel Rudakubana, was a 17-year-old British citizen born in Wales to Christian Rwandan parents. False claims spread rapidly on social media, X, Twitter, Telegram, TikTok, that the attacker was a Muslim asylum seeker named Ali al Shakati. This misinformation was amplified by far right influencers like Tommy Robinson of the EDL founder and Andrew Tate, reaching millions. Within hours, protests erupted outside Southport mosques, escalating into violence against police, arson, and attacks on Muslim owned properties. That's the first key point, the key factors about the riots that happened late last year in the UK. So, number two of the key factors would be the underlying causes of the riots. First would be anti immigrant and anti Muslim sentiments. Far right groups like the English Defence League, EDL, or Patriotic Alternative exploited existing grievances about immigration. It's a common thing that happens during political runnings and election season. Record levels of asylum seekers and inflammatory rhetoric, like Nigel Farage's claims that Muslims don't share British values, stoked resentment. And there's no lies about that. Muslims and British people are two different people. They don't share the same values, same culture. So it only makes sense that this would be an argument. Socio-economic frustrations. Decades of austerity, cost of living crises, and underfunded public services created fertile ground for scapegoating. Immigrants and Muslims were falsely blamed for economic strain and crime. A common thing that happens in countries with a lot of immigrants that are outcompeting the local citizens. Same with here in South Africa. Social media radicalization. Far right Telegram groups, Southport Wake Up was the group's name, coordinated riots, while algorithms amplified hate speech. Elon Musk's X platform was criticized for hosting extremist content, including calls for permanent removal of Islam from Britain. Political legitimization. Reform UK and some mainstream politicians normalized anti immigrant narratives. Analysts noted the riots followed an election campaign marred by racist and Islamophobic messaging. A common thing that happened even last year when Gayton McKenzie of the Patriotic Alliance was campaigning for votes, telling foreigners, illegal foreigners, specifically the Zimbabweans, Nigerians, to go home. He wrote on this, and it's not unique to South Africa, also happened in the UK. Number three of the key factors around this would be the key actors and tactics. Far-right groups, the English Defence League, EDL, right? Tony Robinson's company, the founder, National Front, and neo-Nazi networks like Patriotic Alternative led attacks. They targeted mosques, hotels, housing, asylum seekers, like in the Holiday Inn in Rotherham, and Asian-owned businesses. This was not specific to Muslims when these riots were happening. That's usually the case when chaos is happening at scale. There's no order to say that this is the coordinated attack we want. There's no coordination to it. In chaos, everyone gets attacked. Hence the Asians getting attacked also. All foreigners are being attacked basically. Influencers like Tommy Robinson, based in Cyprus, and Lawrence Fox incited violence online. Robinson's post urged followers to save our kids, framing riots as a defense against invasion. The word invasion is commonly used also in America to describe illegal immigrants who are being invaded, is what they say. Total nonsense, total nonsense. But violence and spread. Riots spread to no, excuse me. Riots spread to over 20 towns in Manchester, Sunderland, Belfast, which involved arson, looting, and assaults. Over 100 police officers were injured, and asylum seekers were barricaded in burning buildings. This is cruel. This is similar to the necklace they make you wear in South Africa when there's mob justice, where they burn a tire when it's around your neck. Just cruel. Number four of the key factors around this would be government and community response. Crackdowns, PM Keir Starmer condemned the far-right thuggery, deploying a standing army of police. By August 2025, 1,840 arrests and 1,103 charges were made, with sentences up to 9 years. Counter mobilization, massive anti racism rallies drew larger crowds than far right protests. In Liverpool, Muslims offered food to rioters to diffuse tensions. So, the policy measures. Social media firms were pressured to remove disinformation. Emergency security funding was allocated to mosques. But then, besides that, everyone knows that the Muslim community and the Jewish community have their own funding system going on where they don't necessarily need help from any other group. They don't need help from anyone else. They've got themselves. So I saw this as just the government's way of trying to save face, trying to buy some forgiveness, because the Muslim community can be very cruel if they want to. 9/11. Number five on this would be the lasting impacts. Trauma in Muslim communities. Reports show heightened anxiety, especially among women and girls fearing public spaces. Hate crimes surged, with 62% of community groups expecting further violence. Broader divisions. Experts warn the riots exposed unresolved issues, austerity, inequality, and failed integration policies. The charity People's Health Trust documented devastating mental health effects in affected areas. That's an obvious and a given. The conclusion on these riots would be the riots are not spontaneous, but a convergence of misinformation, systemic bigotry, and social political neglect. While the UK government's law and order response quelled immediate violence, long term solutions require addressing root causes, regulating social media, investing in marginalized communities, and countering far right radicalization. That would be the piece I have on you on the riots that happened late last year in the UK. Why is this important? Why am I bringing this up to you right now? This is one of those times where you understand that riots, tribalism, culturalism, these things are not unique to any one country going through them, no matter what's happening. I think it's one of the most natural things for a common people, one group of people, to ostracize another group of people they are not familiar with, especially when that other group does not integrate, but would rather have the home group integrate into their culture. Thing about the thing is in the UK, there was no problem when the Muslims were just being Muslims and British people just being British people. The problem came when the Muslims wouldn't integrate into British culture, and then followed up by British citizens integrating into Muslim culture. This felt like an invasion. A similar thing in South Africa would be the Muslims in South Africa don't integrate with the rest of the South Africans, no matter what culture or tribe you're from. They stay as their own thing. Now, the unique thing about South Africa is like, unlike other countries, we are the so-called rainbow nation. A lot of tribes, cultures, and religions are allowed to exist in South Africa at the same time and have free for all at the people to basically pick and choose who they want and who gets to follow them. There's no laws or policies that restrict tribalism or culturalism or religions from expanding or exploiting the people. For as long as everything is consensual, quotation marks, it's a green light. Even satanic groups are allowed to exist here in South Africa, which is ridiculous. I don't see the benefit, but at the same time, it falls under protecting freedom of speech type of agenda. Even in Ghana, the Ghanaians were rioting and protesting against the Nigerians. And when you look at it from now's perspective, the present's perspective, you would easily assume what Ghana is doing is unjustified, or rather, what Ghana is doing is unprovoked. When you go further down in history, you find out that Nigeria did the same thing to Ghana years ago, 1983 or something. And now, when it's happening in today's present, it still looks messed up. That's not to say that what happened in Nigeria was not messed up or what's happening in Ghana is not messed up, but rather, I think public sensitivity in today's present is more than what it was years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And it has an effect on how we receive and perceive riots, xenophobia, discrimination, and biases. Right now, there is this thing that's going on globally where there's small fights, bigger fights, and full out blown wars all happening at the same time. I theorize that with all this fighting, Israel and Palestine, Russia and Ukraine, China and Taiwan, Rwanda and Congo, um, I think that the way things are with all this violence, added with the cartels and the mafias, we are extremely close to a type of world war. It may not look like World War One or Two, but make no mistake, the world is at war. And at some point, there's going to be an acknowledgement of this. Good luck. Good luck. For now, I think that whatever happens in your country, wherever you are, don't take it too personally, or don't subject it to whatever is about you or your country. I think most problems are generic, are general. They happen in most other countries. It's not specific to your one country. And understanding that and trying to figure out the solutions other countries have used to deal with this is a step forward. What I don't agree with is there's this thing with the Western culture where it's like dehumanizes people to see them less than. I don't agree with this. I don't agree with this dehumanizing culture. I think once we stop seeing people as less than people, that's the beginning of what would be the end. That's gonna be it for me from my side. I just hope that people understand that most of what's happening to you is not necessarily unique. Somebody has gone through it, people are going through it, and other people will go through it. You are not wrong to feel the way you feel. You're not wrong to have the reactions you have. What I do think, though, we need to work at is let's not have reactions that have permanent consequences, permanent side effects. Let's try to make any decision that has to be permanent a long thought out decision, a well thought out decision, over days, over weeks. But at least by then, it's not gonna be a thing of you were rushed into it, and you most likely would have thought of everything and even thought about how this affects you, your being, your feelings. But yeah, that's my 2 cents. Anyway, thank you for watching. Appreciate if you made it this far. Please like, share, subscribe, and on to the next one. Yeah, yeah. Appreciate it. Cheers. It's AP. I'm out.